Sam Ansel presents Behind the Smoke. A friend who never spoke taught me everything. Chapter 1: The Man Behind the Smoke. I don't think anyone ever plans to disappear. It just happens, slowly. You skip a call, miss a birthday, stay in bed when you know you should get up, smoke instead of speak, stare instead of sing. Before long, you become invisible. Not to the world, maybe, but to yourself. That was me. I lived in a forgotten office room with no bed, no bathroom, no kitchen. Just a mattress on the floor, a guitar I didn't play anymore, and a coat that smelled like 10 years of bad decisions. I'd wake up every morning with a cigarette already in my hand. I didn't even remember lighting it. It was just there, like a part of me. The smoke was my silence. It kept people away, which was safer. Because if someone came too close, they might smell the truth. The bitter scent of someone who gave up. I used to sing on the streets. Music was my only gift. But I never looked people in the eye. I kept my head low, eyes half shut, pretending I was somewhere else. I wasn't performing. I was surviving. I didn't want connection. I wanted distance. Because connection meant risk. It meant letting someone hear the sadness in my voice, or worse, the hopes still hiding underneath. I had no friends left. I stopped responding to texts. My phone was more of a mirror now, just a black screen that reflected how hollow I'd become. And my family? They tried. They really did. But I pushed them away long enough that even they stopped trying to pull me back. I told myself it was better this way. Less noise. Less shame. But there's a loneliness that doesn't feel like sadness. It feels like stillness. Like dust settling on a piano that no one's played in years. That was me. Until one night. It was late. I hadn't sung that day. I hadn't eaten much. My chest hurt. Not from cigarettes, but from something heavier. I sat on the floor and looked at my own hands. They didn't feel like mine. Calloused, shaky, stained with ink and time. And I said it out loud. I don't want to die like this. It wasn't a cry for help. No one was there to hear it. It was a vow. To myself. To whatever part of me still believed in something more. That's when I remembered something I'd seen once. In a book, or maybe a documentary. I honestly don't know. It said that water holds memory. That if you speak to water, if you infuse it with your purest intentions, it carries that frequency into your body. Into your life. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I wrote a letter. Not to a person. To the universe. I found a blank page in an old notebook and wrote everything I had never dared say aloud. Thank you for the home I haven't found yet. For the love I haven't met. For the mornings where I wake up smiling. For the voice I will use again. I don't know how. I just know I'm ready. I folded the letter with shaky hands, like it might break. Then I took a glass bottle, just an old one I used for water at the gym, and filled it from the cleanest source I had. I placed it on top of the letter. I closed my eyes. Took a breath. And I imagined every word I'd written soaking into that water. Like sunlight through glass. Like music into memory. Then, I drank it. Nothing happened. No flash of light. No voice from the sky. No magic swirl of wind. Just silence. But it was different. It was peaceful. And for the first time in years, I went to sleep with a sense of calm instead of dread. The next morning, I didn't reach for a cigarette. I reached for the bottle. I filled it again. Let it rest on the letter. And I drank. Then I stepped outside. I didn't know where I was going. I just walked. The city was still the same. But something in me wasn't. I could feel it, like the first crack in an old wall. A whisper inside saying, "Keep going." And that whisper would soon become a song again. But first, I had to find the one thing I didn't even know I was missing. A friend. With 4 legs, and eyes that would change everything. Chapter 2: The Dog That Waited for Me. It was maybe a week after I started the ritual, writing to the universe, placing the water on top, drinking it like it meant something, that I began walking farther. Not just around the block anymore. I followed quiet roads, trails I'd forgotten existed, places where my feet could breathe and my head could rest. There was this one path at the edge of the woods. Narrow, overgrown, peaceful. I don't know why I turned down it that morning. I wasn't planning to go anywhere. But something nudged me. Something silent, gentle. And that's when I saw him. He was curled up on a patch of dry leaves, hidden under the shadow of an old pine. A small brown dog. Limping slightly, ribs showing. His fur was matted, his eyes half shut like mine used to be. But when he looked up at me, I stopped breathing. There was no fear in his eyes. Just stillness. Like he'd been waiting for me. I knelt down slowly, careful not to startle him. He didn't flinch. He didn't growl. He didn't run. He just watched me. So I sat with him. No words. No movement. Just two broken things sharing a pocket of silence. After a while I stood up. He didn't follow. But I knew I was coming back. The next morning, I returned with a piece of dry bread and a hard-boiled egg. I laid it down gently, sat a few feet away, and waited. He approached slowly, nose twitching. Ate with caution, like he wasn't sure if this was a trick. It wasn't. Day after day I returned. Some mornings I'd talk to him. Others we just sat. No leash. No commands. Just presence. And slowly, he changed. He began walking more. His limp faded. His tail wagged faintly when he saw me. And I changed too. I started waking up earlier, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I wanted to see if he was okay. I wanted to bring him something warm. Something kind. For the first time in years, someone was expecting me. Even if that someone had 4 legs and didn't say a word. We became a pair. I didn't give him a name. It didn't feel right. He didn't belong to me. I belonged to him just as much. There was something sacred in the way he trusted me. One morning, after a light rain, the forest smelled of pine and fresh earth. I was walking beside him when he suddenly darted ahead, faster than I'd ever seen him move. He disappeared around a bend. "Hey!" I called, laughing nervously. "Where are you going?" No response. Just the crunch of paws and wet leaves. I ran after him, half scared he vanished like a dream. And then I found him, standing at the edge of a mossy ridge. What I saw next made my heart stop. Water. Crystal clear spring water trickling down from between 2 large stones, forming a shallow pool that shimmered in the morning light. The dog, my companion, was drinking from it. It was like something from a painting. No signs. No trail markers. Just a hidden spring, waiting in silence, like it had always been there, just out of reach. I knelt beside him. Cupped the water in my hands. Cold. Clean. Alive. I drank. And something stirred inside me. Something ancient. A memory I'd never lived. A truth without words. We sat there for a long time. That spring became our place. Our sanctuary. I brought my bottle one morning. Filled it there. Let it sit under the sun as we sat nearby, breathing, healing. Then I drank. Not just for hydration. For transformation. And every time I drank, I whispered something. Thank you? Not to anyone in particular. Just to life. To whatever was listening. I didn't need to understand how this was working. I only knew it was. And I wasn't the only one changing. The dog, he walked stronger now. His fur was cleaner. His eyes were brighter. And one day, when I arrived, he ran to me. Not walked, ran. And something in me broke wide open. For the first time in forever. I smiled without guilt. I didn't know it then, but I was already being led to something bigger. To someone. Someone who had been searching just as long as I had been hiding. And that someone was about to find us both. Chapter 3. Her name was Emily. It was early spring when it happened. The sun was just climbing over the trees, golden light filtering through the leaves like soft music. The dog, I still hadn't named him, walked beside me through the trail like we always did. His tail swayed lightly, his steps stronger now. He wasn't just surviving anymore. Neither was I. We just filled the bottle from the spring. I let it sit on the moss while I wrote another letter. My handwriting was steadier now. My thoughts clearer. My thank yous deeper. I wrote, "Thank you for the peace and silence. For the company I never expected. For healing I didn't ask for, but needed more than anything." I drank the water. He watched me. I smiled. Then we turned back toward the edge of the forest, taking the long path home. And then, it happened. From behind us, a voice cut through the stillness, sharp, emotional, almost disbelieving. "Max!" I stopped. The dog froze. "Max!" He turned first. I turned after him. A woman was running down the path, stumbling over roots, hair pulled back in a loose braid, her eyes wide and already filling with tears. The dog's tail stiffened, then started wagging wildly. And in a second, he was running. Full speed. He launched into her arms like a child coming home. She collapsed to her knees, holding him like he was made of glass and light and memories. I just stood there. Still. Watching something I didn't fully understand unfold in front of me. She was sobbing. Not quietly. With her whole body. "I thought you were gone. I thought you drowned." She looked up at me, wiping her tears, her voice shaky. "You found him?" I nodded slowly. "I didn't know his name," I said. "He found me, actually." Her laugh was half broken. "His name is Max. He was mine. He saved a little girl from drowning in the river over a month ago. He jumped in after her. We never saw him again. Everyone said he was gone." I looked at Max, now licking her face, pressing his head into her chest. Saved a girl? Jumped in a river? And still, survived? Suddenly, everything made sense. The limp, the thin frame, the way he trusted but stayed cautious. He'd been through something I couldn't even imagine. And somehow, he had made it all the way here. To me. To both of us. She stood up, still hugging him. "I'm Emily." "Jake," I replied. We walked back slowly, Max trotting between us, like he had two homes now. Emily told me everything. Max was being trained to become a guide dog for children with disabilities. He was brilliant. Sensitive. Gentle. The river changed all that. She had searched for days. Posters. Parks. Shelters. No sign. And now, here he was. Right in front of her. Whole. Changed, but alive. She asked if I'd come over for dinner. And for some reason I didn't even question. I said yes. That night, I sat at a real table again. The smell of roasted vegetables. Warm bread. A candle flickering on the counter. Max lay curled near the door, finally asleep without fear. Emily poured 2 glasses of water, spring water. The same I'd brought in my bottle. She raised hers. "To second chances?" she said. I raised mine. "To the dog who brought us here." We drank. And I swear, something sacred passed through my chest. I didn't know what this was. I didn't know where it was going. But it felt like home. Not a place. A moment. A possibility. A spark. I left her house that night feeling like the world had cracked open, and something good was finally trying to get in. I walked back to my little office room, looked at my bottle, and whispered, "Thank you for today. I didn't know I needed her. Or him. Or this. But I do." I folded a new letter, placed it under the bottle, and slept with my heart wide open. Chapter 4. The One They Took Away. I didn't expect peace to feel so fragile. In the days that followed our reunion with Emily, everything felt right. Like the universe had handed us a thread of gold and said, "Hold this gently." You've earned it. Emily and I started seeing each other more. Not in a rushed, romantic way, but like two people who knew what it meant to lose something, and were learning how to care again. Max seemed happier than ever. He'd sleep stretched out under the sunlight, eat with full trust, and follow us like he belonged to both of us. Because, by then, he did. Some mornings we'd still go to the spring, sit in silence, fill our bottles, whisper dreams. Emily began her own ritual too, writing her own letters. It became something we shared, quiet gratitude in a loud world. Until one morning, everything cracked. We were walking with Max through a quiet neighborhood, just the three of us, sunlight painting the sidewalk gold. That's when the city truck pulled up. Two uniformed officers stepped out. I remember the sound of the door slamming. Too hard. Too official. One of them looked at Max. That your dog? I paused. He's not exactly mine. The second one cut me off. His voice was clipped and personal. There was a report. Dog matching this one's description bit a woman downtown. We're going to need to take him in for assessment. I laughed nervously, confused. You've got the wrong dog. He's never been aggressive. He was a service dog in training. The first officer pulled out a leash pole. Emily stepped forward. Wait. You're making a mistake. His name is Max. He just reunited with me last week after being missing for over a month. He's gentle. Ask anyone. They didn't ask anyone. He fits the description. Brown. Medium size. Mutt. That's enough to bring him in for evaluation. Max sensed it. His ears dropped. He took a step behind my leg. I knelt down and cupped his face. It's okay, buddy. I'm not letting this be the end of your story. I promise. They took him. He didn't resist. As always, he trusted that we'd do the right thing. As they drove off, Emily covered her mouth with her hand. I didn't cry. I just stood there. Frozen. Burning. We went to the city shelter that same afternoon. They wouldn't let us in to see him. The clerk behind the glass said something rehearsed and hollow. Dogs involved in active investigations must remain in isolated holding for 7 days. If no counter-evidence is provided, they're assessed for temperament. If deemed a public risk, the animal may be... She didn't finish the sentence. But I knew what she meant. I turned to Emily. We're not letting them do this. She nodded. Fire in her eyes. We spent the next 2 days chasing records. We started by requesting the report from the alleged bite incident. It was vague. A woman had been bitten by a dog in a park. No witness confirmed what the dog looked like, just that it was brown and medium-sized. That described half the strays in the city. Emily remembered something. The date of the attack, she said, flipping through her phone, was March 12th. She pulled up an email. Her eyes widened. There it is. Max was at Pause and Purpose that day. Grooming and training session. All day. Chapter 8. We drove there immediately. The door was always open. The trainer remembered Max. I thought I was waiting Everyone for permission. Everyone did. They enter. Loved him. To belong. Said he was gentle, to be focused, seen. Special. But the truth they had security footage. The door was never And there locked. He was, on March 12th, wagging his tail, being shampooed, then walking calmly through a training course, guiding a child in a blindfold. And I don't ask the world to complete The timestamp was clear. I let it receive what we had proof. Proof he couldn't have done what they accused him of. Because when you start honoring proof that the universe was watching, you don't force space. That night, I sat by the window with my letter and my bottle of water, and I whispered, "Thank you for giving us what we need, right when we need it. Let this truth reach the right ears." Slowing down, and I drank. While you poured that water into the we'd return to the shelter. You chose Tomorrow, to care for. We'd fight. You watch it change. Not just for Max. You watch yourself But for change. Every piece of joy this world tries to take back the moment we begin to heal. Is the same attention Chapter that 5. You. He knew we'd come. If there's a link to that process. The next morning, we showed up at the shelter before they even opened the doors. You might find it in the first I held the printed documents in one hand. Maybe timestamp footage, training logs, maybe not yet. Grooming receipts. If not, proof. Trust that the universe Emily stood beside me, arms crossed, still and sharp like a blade. When the clerk finally unlocked the doors, we stepped in like we were walking into court.
Follow it.
This wasn't just a visit.
Something in you.
It was a mission.
Not later.
We asked to
Now.
speak with the supervisor. When she appeared, we didn't wait for her to settle in. Emily stepped forward and laid out the evidence with calm precision. The supervisor tried to hold her bureaucratic expression, but her eyes flickered. She said she'd review it with the board. That meant time. More waiting. But I had waited long enough in life. I leaned in and said quietly, "You're holding a dog that saved a life. That trained to guide children. That survived a flood and found his way home. If you really care about what's right, don't let this go any further." There was a long silence. Then she nodded and said 5 words that nearly broke me. "You can see him now." She led us down a narrow hallway, echoing with the distant sounds of barking and metal bowls. I felt my heart beating in my throat. And then we turned a corner. There he was, behind a gate, sitting quietly, head down, still. For a moment he didn't move. Then he lifted his eyes, and everything changed. He stood, tail wagging slowly, then faster. He took 1 step, then another. Then he ran. The gate opened just in time, and he launched into our arms, whimpering, licking our faces like a waterfall of joy. He wasn't angry. He didn't seem scared anymore. He looked relieved, like he always knew we'd come back. Emily held his face and whispered, "We told you. We're here." I knelt beside them, and for the first time since I was a kid, I cried in public. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming feeling of belonging. We walked out of that place together. And for the first time, it wasn't just Max who was free. It was all of us. We didn't go back to Emily's. We went straight to the spring. The 3 of us. I carried Max most of the way. He was still shaken, and I wanted to carry him the way he'd carried me without knowing. The woods opened around us like a secret we'd kept safe. The air was soft. The water sang. We filled our bottles together. Emily placed her letter beneath hers. I placed mine beneath mine. Max stood between us, eyes closed, nose tilted to the sky. We didn't speak for a long time. Then, as if by instinct, we raised our bottles and clinked them together. "To truth," Emily whispered. "To protection," I said. "To love," she added. "And to always finding our way back," I finished. We drank. And I swear the water tasted different. Richer. Brighter. Like it had memory. Like it had carried us through every step of this story, waiting for us to finally arrive together. That night, back at Emily's, she made soup. Max curled up in a blanket near the couch, breathing softly. I looked around the room, at the soft light, the warmth, the presence, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not relief. Not pride. But safety. Real, full-bodied, bone-deep safety. The kind that comes when you know you're exactly where you're supposed to be. I sat by the window before sleeping and wrote a final sentence on a fresh page. "Thank you for restoring what I thought I'd lost forever, trust in life." I folded it, placed it under the bottle, and whispered the words again as I drank. We weren't done yet. But for the first time, we had each other. And the rest would come. Chapter 6. I still wake early. Sometimes before the birds. The world is quiet then, like it's listening. Max usually stretches by the door, eyes half open, waiting to see if I'll speak first. Emily hums in the kitchen barefoot, her presence as gentle as the steam rising from her tea. And I sit, bottle in hand, letter beneath it. Not to wish, not to fix, but simply to remember who I am, and what I've become. The man I used to be would have never believed this life was possible. But he kept walking. He kept writing. He kept showing up, through the silence, through the fear, through the smoke. Until one day, he was no longer surviving. He was living. And now, I live. We live. Together. And if you're still here, maybe some part of you is ready too. Because sometimes, the smallest things. A walk in the woods. A dog with kind eyes. A letter folded with care can change everything. If you've come this far with me, thank you. Not just for listening, but for feeling. This story was more than memory. It was a way back. Back to presence. Back to trust. Back to something sacred we all carry inside, but forget. What changed my life wasn't sudden. It didn't come with applause. It came like spring, quiet, steady, unmistakable. Each day, a little lighter. Each moment, a little clearer. And at the center of it all was something so simple, so human. I almost didn't notice how powerful it really was. A letter. A bottle. Some water. And a decision to believe again. To thank life before it answered. To speak softly to the unseen. To honor a hope not yet realized, but already alive. I wasn't taught this by a book. I didn't learn it in a course. It came through experience, through surrender, through walking beside a dog who didn't speak, but showed me everything I needed to remember. So now, I want to offer that remembrance to you. Not as a fix. Not as a promise. But as a ritual. As a seed. As a return to your own voice, your own truth, your own unfolding. In the link below, you'll find the same practice I've followed every day since my life began again. It's gentle. It's real. And it's yours if you feel ready. You don't need to be healed to begin. You only need to begin. Because sometimes, before anything in the world changes, you have to write it down. Lift the water to your lips. And let life feel your faith. Whatever happens next, I believe in you. And the water does too.